Welcome to his short word channel.
You shall indeed know the truth, and it shall set you free.
And we create nothing but the truth.
And you can do nothing against the truth, but for the truth.
So kindly hit that subscribe button and embrace the truth.
Serving the Lord, serving the Lord, serving the Lord. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. How do you serve the Lord? Romans chapter 1 verse 9. Romans chapter 1 verse number 9. Brother Paul writes to the church in Rome, he says, "For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son." Whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers. I serve with my spirit. So, by the way, the word service in the Greek is the same root word for servant, diakonai. It means to be available to be used. To be available to be used. To be available to be used. So serving the Lord implies or means I am available to be used. I am available to be used. Then another version says, keep the glow of the Spirit. So now he identifies the influence of the Spirit with service. He identifies the influence of the Spirit with service. Now, please pay attention. That's why the first member of a man to serve the Lord is the Spirit. I serve the Lord with my spirit in the gospel. All right? My innermost being. That is, I am committed inside to serve the Lord. Inside me, in my innermost being. In Romans chapter 12 verse 2, Romans chapter 12 verse 2, Brother Paul will say, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So, in other words, you serve the Lord with your mind. And in verse 1 of Romans chapter 12, verse 1, Romans 12 verse 1, Brother Paul says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So you serve the Lord with your body. You serve the Lord with your spirit. You serve the Lord with your mind. You serve the Lord with your body. Your body is not just for makeup. Your body is not just for makeup. Your body is to be used by God because it was bought with a price. Your body is to be used by God because it was bought with a price. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 20. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse number 20. For you are bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. You make your body, your spirit, and your mind available to be used. Available to be used by God. Somebody said to me some time ago, you think I came to this church so that you people can use me? You cannot use me. Oh. If you cannot be used, then don't come to this church at all. If you are in this church at all, by being in this church, what you have said is, I'm available to be used. And we will use you to serve God. Somebody say, use me. Yeah. Because that is what it is. When you present your body for service because your body has been bought, what you are saying is, use me. I'm available to be used. That is your reasonable service. That is your reasonable service. Be not conformed, the Greek word somopho, to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. There are present tense, continuous tenses in salvation. Philippians chapter 2 verse 12. Philippians chapter 2 verse number 12. Wherefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So there is a walk in salvation. Work out your salvation. Don't work for your salvation. You work out, that is, you don't work to be saved. Any work before salvation is dead works. But now that you are saved, there is work. Now that you are saved, there is work. So you work out your salvation. How do you work out your salvation? Verse 13. How do you work it out? For it is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure. So there is a work of God going on your inside. When you yield to that work, your salvation produces fruit. It is called the work of salvation. Remember, you are saved unto good works. You are saved unto good works. There is something to do after you are saved. You are not saved to sit down on a reclining chair and cross your legs. You are saved unto good works. Work out your salvation. Not work for your salvation. Work it out by yielding to the work that God is carrying out inside you. You yield to the work of God on your inside. There is a work of God going on your inside. Thank God for salvation. But salvation is not your work. Salvation is his work. But salvation produces works in us. Works in us. And we ought to be about the works of our salvation. We ought to be about the works of our salvation. The things that our salvation has prompted us into. The things that salvation has prompted us into. We avoid the danger of living our lives righteously. In the name of we are saved. He has finished everything. But remember, he saved us to serve. He saved us to serve. He saved us to sonship, and at the same time, he saved us into service. He saved us into service. You cannot claim to be growing up spiritually as a child of God if you are not serving. You cannot claim to be growing up spiritually as a child of God if you are not serving. When you are not serving, it is an indication to me that you are not growing up spiritually. Any brother or sister in this church that avoids service, that is always avoiding service, any brother or sister in this church that is allergic to service, it's obvious that that person is not growing up spiritually. It's obvious that every time you come to church, you are wasting our labor on your head. It's obvious that you are not growing at all. And when a child in a house refuses to grow, the child becomes a problem in the house. Any child that is eating your food for 10 years and is still crawling becomes a fundamental concern, becomes a medical concern, becomes a biological concern, becomes a spiritual concern. A baby 10 years still crawling is a fundamental error. That child is a societal concern. It's a societal concern. 10 years still crawling. So when a member of a church that is feeding on sound doctrine like this is not growing, there's a problem. Number one is either you're not born again at all. Because a spiritual man, a natural man cannot receive the things of the spirit. So it's either you're not born again. That is, we are feeding you food you cannot digest. We are feeding you food you cannot digest. So you are under us, but you lack capacity to digest spiritual food because you're not born again. Or you are born again, but you have subscribed to selfish living. What kind of living? Selfish living. You are born again, but you have subscribed to selfishness. And selfishness is ungodly. Selfishness is unchristlike. Selfishness is anti Antichrist. Antichrist.
Dear brethren, I hope you are blessed.
Until next time, bye.